Am I audible?
Yep, here comes your clear. What's on your mind?
Am I audible now?
Yeah, still here and hearing you. Go ahead.
Yeah, what about now?
Yep, loud and clear. I've got you.
So I wanted to discuss about business law, the Companies Act 2013. So are you ready?
Got it. Digging into that right now. Yep, loud and clear. So, Company Law, Companies Act 2013. Let's anchor the basics. A company is a separate legal person, so its debts are its own, not the shareholders, except to the extent of unpaid share capital or guarantee.
So any such
Typically, we start.
I will discuss about one person company, a significant point. Any such change in the name of the person shall not be deemed to be an alteration of the memorandum.
One moment. Yeah, so that line is about the nominee in a one-person company. Changing the nominee's name is allowed, and that change doesn't count as an alteration of the memorandum. It's just a statutory intimation to the company and registrar, not a formal MOA alteration.
So only a natural person who is an Indian citizen, whether a resident in India or otherwise, and has stayed in India for a period of not less than 120 days during the immediately preceding financial year, shall be eligible to incorporate a one-person company and shall be nominee for the sole member of a one-person company. Explain it word to word.
One moment. All right, in plain words, it's saying only a real human being who is an Indian citizen and has been in India for at least 120 days in the previous financial year can form a one-person company. The same rule applies to who can be the nominee. So no companies or foreign citizens, just individual Indian citizens meeting that stay condition.
When they say whether resident in India or otherwise has stayed in India for a period not less than 120 days, when they say not less than 120 days, does that make the person a resident as well?
Checking that right now. Not automatically in the everyday sense. For OPC rules, resident in India specifically means someone who stayed in India for at least 120 days in the immediately preceding financial year. That clause also says whether resident in India or otherwise, meaning an Indian
So
citizen can incorporate an
what are the
OPC.
two criteria to fulfill the resident criteria?
One moment. For the OPC resident test, there are
here's our roadmap for today. We're covering the 1990s bankruptcy crisis, selling the superhero rights, the ultimate financial gamble, building Marvel Studios, Disney's acquisition and synergy, and finally changing cinema forever. Let's get right into it. Section 1, the 1990s bankruptcy crisis, from Comic Crash to Chapter 11. So our story actually begins in the
Am I audible?
Still clear.
No person shall be eligible to incorporate more than one person company or become a nominee in more than one such company. Explain.
So it basically says that one individual can't start or be the nominee for more than one OPC at the same time, basically. One person, one OPC, whether as a member or a nominee.
So can they become a member of a OPC and a nominee of another?
Let me check. Yes, so no. Generally, you can't be the member of one OPC and the nominee in another at the same time. It just has to be one OPC per person.
So no minor should become member or nominee of the OPC or can hold share with beneficial interest.
That's right, yeah. A minor cannot be a member or a nominee or hold shares in an OPC.
So such company cannot be incorporated or converted into the company under Section 8 of the Act. Such company cannot be incorporated or converted into a company, though it may convert it into private or public companies in certain cases. Here I did not get. Initially they say it cannot be incorporated, converted into a company under section, and then they again mentioned that it can be converted into private and public companies in certain cases. I didn't get.
Let me double check that wording. So what it's basically saying is an OPC can't be a Section 8 company or become one. Section 8 is for nonprofits, which just doesn't fit the OPC structure. So when an OPC wants to grow or bring in more members or go public, it can convert into a private or public company if it follows.
So initially what they meant that
one sec. Initially, it's saying that you can register an OPC as the Section 8 company. So from the get-go, an OPC cannot be created for charitable or nonprofit purposes.
what is Section 8 all about?
One sec. So Section 8 is for companies that promote charitable or not-for-profit objectives like education, charity, social welfare, and so on. That's not-for-profit distribution.
So a one-person company cannot become a charitable company.
Let me double check. Correct. OPC can't become a Section 8 charitable company.
Such a company cannot carry out a non-banking financial investment activities, uh, including investment in securities of any body corporate. What does it mean?
Hmm. Let me double check. It basically means an OPC can't mainly do investment or financing as its core business. So it can't just
When
be
they
set up
say
to
when they say
invest in
cannot
shares.
cannot carry out non-banking financial investment, what non-banking financial investment means here?
Let me check. Here it means business activities like lending, financing, or investing in securities as a business, not as a bank. So the line is saying that an OPC cannot be an investment or a finance company. It's just for regular business.
So what is the difference between banking financial investment and non-banking financial investment in this context?
Double checking that. In this context, banking financial activity is what banks do, taking deposits from the public and lending as a regulated bank. Non-banking financial activity is when a company that isn't a bank still mainly does financing or investment. So, for example, a finance company giving loans or investing in shares. So the rule basically bars an OPC from acting like a finance or investment company.
But what if the OPC is all about banking? Is it possible?
Checking. Nope. Banking is a highly regulated activity and OPC can't be set up for banking. Basically, OPCs are for regular businesses and specifically restricted from non-banking financial or investment activities. If the activity is banking or NBFC in nature, an OPC is not permitted for that.
So here the member can be the sole member and the director as well.
Let me check. Yes, the same person can be the sole member and the director in an OPC.
So here the short summary. OPC it's a one member company, then private company in nature, then it's encourage entrepreneurship and corporatization of business, then procedural requirements are simplified through exemptions, and then separate legal entity, and then limited liability.
Sounds like you've got the pretty solid gist of it. One member, private company structure, easier compliance, limited liability, and a separate legal entity. That's the essence.
So private company means a company having a minimum paid up share capital as may be prescribed, and which by its articles uh, restricts the right to transfer shares, except in case of one person company limits the number to 100 to 200.
Checking that now. Yep, that's basically the definition of a private company under the Act. Its articles restrict share transfers, cap membership at 200, and generally doesn't invite the public to subscribe. OPC is a special type of private company.
Let me read it again. It's a
Sure.
next on the basis of members. There are many classification where we completed one-person company. Then our next topic is private company. Private company means a company having a minimum paid-up share capital, as may be prescribed, in which by its articles. Am I audible?
Yep, I'm here. Whenever you're ready.
Yeah, could you explain me then? What is the private company section 268?
Sure. It basically means a private company is a company that must have the required paid up capital as prescribed. And by its own articles, restricts free transfer of shares, keeps the number of members to a limit of 200, and doesn't invite the public to invest.
So is the one-person company a private company or different?
Check. It's a type of private company. OPC is basically a special kind of private company with just one member.
So restricts the right to transfer of its shares, then except in case of one-person company, limits the number of its members to 200. Could you explain me?
Let me take a look. It has two parts. First, in a private company, shares can't be freely sold to outsiders. The articles usually put some controls there. Second, except for OPCs, which only have one member by definition, a normal private company can have at most 200 members. So the 200 cap is for regular private companies, not OPCs.
So maximum for private company is 200 members.
Exactly, yes, for a regular private company, up to 200 members. But OPCs are separate, obviously, with just one member.
So private company means a company having a minimum paid up share capital as may be prescribed and which by its articles restricts the right to transfer its shares except in case of one-person company, limits the number of its members to 200, provided that where two or more persons hold one or more shares in a company jointly, they shall, for the purposes of this clause, be treated as a single member. Could you give an example to that?
Check. Sure. Imagine you and a friend jointly hold a single share together. For counting that 200 member limit, you two are treated as one member.
No, let's say A and B hold shares jointly, 500 shares. So A and B is counted as one.
Checking. Yes, for the 200 member limit, A and B jointly holding even 500 shares still counts as one member because they hold those shares jointly. Number of shares doesn't change that. Joint holders are treated as a single member for this specific limit.
Provided further that persons who are in the employment of the company, then persons who have been formerly in the employment of the company were members of the company while in that employment and have continued to be members of the employment ceased shall not be included in the number of members.
Checking. That part is saying that certain people don't count toward that 200 member limit. Specifically, current employees who are members are not counted, and former employees who became members while employed and remain members after leaving also aren't counted in that 200. Basically, those members are excluded from the cap.
Explain for each with example.
One moment. Sure. First, current employees who are members. Suppose ABC Private Limited has 200 outside members. It also gives shares to 20 of its current employees. Those 20 employee members are not counted for the 200 member limit. So the company is still within the count. Second, former employees who became members while employed and continued after leaving. So let's say Rahul was an employee and got shares while working. He later resigns but keeps the shares. Rahul still isn't counted in the 200 because he became a member while he was an employee. But if he bought shares after leaving, then he'd be counted.
Next is prohibits any invitation to the public to subscribe for any securities of the company.
One moment. That's the third condition. A private company cannot invite the general public to buy or subscribe to its shares or debentures. So, no public advertisements or open invitations for the public to.
Invited, then how those 200 were have those 200 have joined the private company? What is the procedure in such that?
Checking. They join privately, like through initial promoters or subscribers at a corporation, or by later private placement or transfer under the articles. Basically, select people are invited, not the general public.
So when they joined, what is the how that is different from joining through public?
Checking. Joining via private placement or transfer is by offer to specific known persons, not an open call to everyone. In a public company, there's an invitation where any member of the public can apply. So, private is personal and selective, public is open to everyone.
So private company significant points, no minimum paid up capital requirements. Are you still there?
Yeah, I'm right here.
So private company significant point is no minimum paid up capital requirement.
Checking. That's correct. There is no minimum paid up share capital requirement now for a private company. That old requirement was removed. No paid up capital anymore.
So minimum number of members 2, except if private company is an OPC. It will be 1. Alright.
That's right. A normal private company needs at least 2 members, and if it's an OPC, it's just 1. Yep.
And maximum number of members is 200, excluding the present employee, come members, and erstwhile employee come members. What is erstwhile employee come members?
That means former employee members. Basically, people who were employees and also became members while working and stayed on as members after leaving. In that 200 cap, they're not counted, but only if they became members while employed.
So right to transfer shares is restricted in private.
Check. Yes. Right. Share transfers are restricted in a private company, meaning you cannot freely transfer shares to anyone. The articles may require offering them first to existing members or getting board approval, for example.
So prohibition on invitation to subscribe to securities of the company.
Check. Correct. A private company cannot invite the public to subscribe for its shares or debentures. That kind of public solicitation is only for public companies. A private company has to raise capital privately from select persons.
When this is small company is a private company, what does it mean by small company here?
Checking. Here, small company is a legal category under the Act. basically based on thresholds of paid-up capital and turnover. So it has to be a private company first. Not every private company is a small company. It only qualifies as a small company if it stays within those prescribed limits and isn't
So what?
specific.
No, I'm asking you, what is a small company?
One sec. A small company is a private company that stays within certain size limits, like low paid-up capital and turnover, and is not in an excluded category like a holding. It gives
So an
simpler
OPC can be
compliance
formed
methods.
only as a private company.
An OPC?
Can be formed only as a private company.
Right, exactly. It has to be a private company and must meet the size thresholds to be a small company. So as of the latest threshold available to me, it's paid up share capital up to 10 crore and turnover up to 100 crore.
So small company are given under section 2, subsection 85 of the Companies Act 2013, which means a company other than a public company, paid up share capital of which does not exceed 50 lakh rupees or such higher amount as may be prescribed, which shall not be more than 10 crores rupees. Turnover
Right.
which as per the profit and account
Small
for the immediately preceding or such higher amount as may be prescribed, which shall be more than 100 crore rupees. Could you explain this too?
Let me take a look. This is the definition of small company under section 285. The company must not be a public company, and its paid up share capital must be within the specified limit. Currently up to 10 crore, and its turnover for the immediately preceding financial year must be within the specified limit. Currently up to 100 crore. Both conditions have to be met to be treated as a small company.
Exception. This clause shall not apply to option A holding company or a subsidiary company. Could you explain me?
One moment. The exception means that even if a company meets the capital and turnover limits, it's not treated as a small company if it falls in certain categories. For example, a holding or subsidiary company, a Section 8 not-for-profit company, or a company governed by a special act. Basically, small size alone isn't enough.
So, section 8 registered under section 8 is about not for profit, isn't it?
Checking. Yes, Section 8 is for not-for-profit or charitable objects. Profits are reinvested in the objective, not distributed to members.
A company or body corporate governed by any special act.
Checking. That exception means if it's mainly governed by its own special law, it's not treated as a small company. Basically, a special act means a specific law made for a particular type of body, like banking, insurance.
Could you explain me again?
education,
Could you explain it again?
Corporation. Sure. Basically, if a company is mainly governed by its own special law, like banking or insurance, then it's not treated as a small company. So even if it is small-ish in size, think of it as already having its own special regulatory framework, so the small company regime doesn't apply to it. That special law takes precedence.
For the purposes of subclause and subclause of clause. For the purpose of subclause 1 and subclause 2 of clause 85 of section 2 of the Act paid up capital and turnover of the small company shall not exceed rupees 4 crores and rupees 40 crores respectively. Company's specification of definition details. Amendment Rules 2022 with effect from 15 September 2022. Explain me this word to word.
Let me check that carefully. This is prescribing the actual numbers for a small company. Basically, for deciding whether a company is small, the paid up capital must not exceed 4 crore and turnover must not exceed 40 crore under that 2022 amendment from 15 September.
But initially, I studied that. Did you remember? I was studying about a small company, and I said
Yeah,
paid
you
up
were-
share capital, which
Go
is
on.
50 lakh and 10 crores,
Yeah,
and turnover is 2 crore and 100 crore.
yes, you were reading the definition and the amendment. So the act sets the framework and lets the government prescribe higher limits, and the 2022 set the operative thresholds at 4 crore capital and 40 crore turnover from September 15, 2022.
So now, earlier it was 2 crore and which does not exceed 2 crore, which is normal, and highest was 100 crore. So now it has become 4 crore, isn't it?
Checking that. Yeah, exactly. From that amendment, the operative limits were paid up capital not exceeding 4 crore.
Wait,
and
let me
turnover
read it
not
again.
exceeding
Wait,
40
let
crore.
me read it again. For the purposes of the
Sure.
for the purposes of the subclause and for the purposes of the subclause 1 and subclause 2 of clause 85 of the section 2 of the act, paid up capital turnover of small company shall turnover of small company shall not exceed rupees 4 crores and rupees 40 crores respectively.
So that line is saying for deciding if a company is small under the act, the thresholds are paid up capital not above 4 crore and turnover not above 40 crore. And that's what applies from September 15, 2022. Earlier it was 2 to 20.
When they
But
say
from that day, it
paid up
became
capital
44.
and turnover, so paid up capital is now 4 crore and the turnover minimum, are they talking about the minimum, not the highest upper?
Let me double check that. It's the upper limit, not the minimum. The phrase shall not exceed sets the maximum. So capital
No.
must be no more than 4
As in the
crore.
initial act I read, which shall not be more than 10 crores. I mean, I read it like this, or such higher amount as may be prescribed, which shall not be more than 10 crores, which is the possible highest which can be set by the government, isn't it? So that will be fixed in
Checking.
both the case, I
Yeah.
suspect.
Yeah, exactly. So 10 crore and 100 crore are the ceilings up to which the government can prescribe. The act says up to, and the government sets the actual thresholds by rules. In 2022, it was set at 4 and 40, and later those thresholds were raised to 10 and 100.
No, it's not like that. Please entirely interpret the act and be sure and then teach me.
Okay, let me pull that together.
Study from the internet
Alright,
about this
focusing
act.
just. Yeah, focus on the act itself. First, a small company must not be a public company. Then the paid up share capital test. The base figure is 50 lakh. The act then allows the government to prescribe a higher limit, but even that prescribed limit cannot go beyond 10 crore. Same pattern for turnover. The base is 2 crore. The government can prescribe a higher number, but not beyond 100 crore. The act sets the base and the ceiling, and the exact operational numbers come from later rules.
Now explain the amendment.
Now, the amendment part. The act lets the government prescribe a higher limit within the ceilings. And the 2022 amendment set that working limit at 4 crore paid up capital
So
and 40 crore turnover. from
relate with the
September 15.
previous act. What has changed? And tell me.
Let me line that up. Okay, before the amendment, the act already allowed higher limits to be prescribed. The 2022 amendment raised the operational thresholds from 2 crore capital and 20 crore turnover up to 4 and 40.
No, first of all,
The
it
act's
was
own
paid up share
structure-
capital was which does not exceed 50 lakh rupees or such higher amount as may be prescribed, which shall not be more than 10 crore rupees, isn't it? After reading this line, I can conclude that it has been stated that the paid up share of the small company in general should not be more than 50 lakh rupees. While this amount can be further increased by the government if needed, which can be up to 10 crore. This is what I understood by reading the first part of the act. After that, they mentioned the amendments. Now, could you please tell me which figure is getting replaced after the amendment?
Checking. Yeah, your reading of the act is right. The amendment doesn't replace 50 lakh in the act text. It's the prescribed higher amount that changes. So earlier, the prescribed limit was 2 crore for paid up capital and 20 crore for turnover. The 2022 amendment replaced those
No,
operative
wait, not.
figures with 4
Let's
crore
talk
and 40
first. Let's talk first about paid up share capital only. After that, we will talk about turnover. So now, tell me which figure is getting replaced in paid up share capital.
Checking. For paid up share capital only, the amendment replaced the earlier operative figure of 2 crore with 4 crore. So the base 50 lakh and the ceiling of 10 crore language in the act stay the same.
I didn't
What
get.
changed is the prescribed number from 2
Where
crore.
did you find 2 crore?
So
There is no 2 crore. I'm asking you to.
One sec.
I'm asking you to talk about paid up share capital, not turnover.
yes, you're right. The paid up capital line in the act itself doesn't mention 2 crore. It just says 50 lakh and allows a higher amount up to a 10 crore ceiling. So if we're only talking paid up capital, then the amendment is simply prescribing 4 crore as the operative limit within that power. Not replacing 50 lakh in the act, just using the such higher amount as may be prescribed slot. So clean version for paid up capital after
So
the
tell me in a
amendment,
layman.
the working
Tell me in a
limit is
layman
4
language. Tell me in a layman language. As initially we understood, we concluded that 50 lakh is the paid up share capital in general, and the government can anytime change it to higher with a maximum of 10 crore. This is what I understood, and the current was 50 lakh, but in the 2022. Now tell me that 50 lakh figure became what?
check. Yeah. It didn't become anything. Practically though, for paid up share capital, the applicable limit became 4 crore by prescription under that enabling phrase and the act as the original